Alright, hey guys, and welcome back. And I actually want to talk about a film that I rewatched after so many years, and that is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Now, let me tell you that this was a very interesting film because, unlike the first Terminator, this one actually created some form of character development, sentimental values, and actually turned the Terminator into a good guy. And this was sort of a revolutionary film because of course, James Cameron had his whole big plot of the machines taking over the world, but for some reason, there was the decision to actually change the script to a point where Arnold Schwarzenegger turns out to be the good guy in this film. And man, was it a brilliant choice because not only did Arnold Schwarzenegger absolutely shine, become super famous, become loved all across the world, but Terminator 2 is one of the best movies I feel ever made. And I rewatched it, and I definitely am glad to have stood by this film, as do so many other people around the world over so many years. It was an absolutely brilliant film. Robert Patrick having acted as that liquid metal villain, the T-1000. It's just such an amazing thing, and the CGI involved around the T-1000 too was brilliant at the time. Like this film came out in '91. Holy crap! Like think of the CGI that they had at the time and the effort that they would have taken to actually make the liquid metal guy look as realistic as possible without him looking like some kind of plasticine or some sort of plaster molded, hand like frame by frame hand molded character. So they actually used really good computer graphics to, create this guy to make him look like, liquid metal, and he still does until today when I rewatch that film. So man, it was such a good movie. Like the character development involved between the Terminator and the kid and also Sarah Connor and the Terminator, and how Sarah Connor gets rescued from prison because the son decides that he wants to actually do something that he believes is right. And this is sort of the film that tells you that John Connor does have some kind of judgment making, just like decision making qualities and judgment making abilities that make him the leader that he's supposed to be in this so-called future that we have no idea of at this time. Sure, in Terminator 3 Salvation, Terminator 4 Salvation? Yeah, Terminator 4 Salvation, Terminator 3, the one where everyone dies. I can't remember what that was. This is Judgment Day. I think the third one is Rise of the Machines. I think it's Rise of the Machines or something like that. But we don't get to see what John Connor actually lives up to until Terminator 4. But man, in this movie, you actually get to see glimpses of the kid actually making the right decisions as the characters develop. And then we also get to, get the brilliant chance to see Joe Morton doing some pretty awesome things. I think I most recently saw him in Justice League, right? He was the father of Cyborg, but man, he too had like a minor role, which actually had great character development because he actually performs his purpose of being this genius scientist that actually is the one that they believe creates Judgment Day and in his timeline. But then they need his help to actually destroy all the chips and whatever, and destroy all the computer parts and all the research he's been working on to develop these microchips that eventually turn into Skynet, or rather become the reason Skynet advances and becomes an even more complex and more self-aware AI before the Terminators are born. So the entire story, the build up, the relationship between the T-800, right? Terminator and the kid. Like all of this just make this film such a complete, awesome movie. And it's not just a story. Guess what? There's brilliant action. There's quips. There's comedy. There's like scary horror moments. It's almost a complete film that we do not get from movies these days, and it's just so amazing. Look at these. These are pretty awesome action scenes at the time, and they actually wrecked these trucks. There was no, I don't think they CGI'd any of these action moments. So they actually wrecked all these trucks. And just Arnold Schwarzenegger being an absolute badass. Some cool moments, some moments where you can, laugh without absolutely losing your mind because you still feel like you're in the story, you're still in the moment. And yes, it's funny at certain times, but you realize the tension between these characters and what the story is actually going after, which is stopping Judgment Day, which is the end of the world, which is really high stakes. And look at this. This CGI is one of the best of its time, man. It looks so good even until today. Like it looks natural. There's actually nothing wrong with it. Like I can't find a flaw in this CGI. I mean, of course, it could be done better. We know how today's CGI and today's lighting is, but in 1991, how many people can say that there's another film like this? I think there was barely any. Probably the Star Wars films were the only ones that could keep up with it. And then also the tension on the mental asylum that, what do you call it, Sarah Connor was being kept. You know, the sort of how they make these people look like real villains and how they bully their patients and, you know, they make you hate the doctor and all the build up of character. And then, you know, the fact that the T-1000 can actually disguise as anyone, and you know, he comes as human beings and therefore, you know, he can easily blend into society and people wouldn't suspect him of being the criminal, whereas the T-800 is always going to look as is. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger is always going to look himself. And yeah, the good old arcade games of the invaders and whatever. So all these really cool stuff coming together, and you know the story absolutely just you know looking insanely awesome. Oh yeah, and also this scene, this absolutely classic scene of Arnold Schwarzenegger just beating up people in the bar looking for their clothes, because he spawns in naked as a Terminator. And yeah, you know, like look at this, the console that he has inside his visor, which is inside his head, the detailed, you know, and man, this is like this movie just beats movies today. Like this 1991 film of a robot that comes from the future to save the kid in the past who is supposed to become the future leader, and his mom who's helping him, you know, and this evil robot that's after them. Like think of this story like just as is. It's a brilliant story with brilliant characters and an amazing actor. Of course, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton absolutely carried this film. Robert Patrick was good, but you know he's pretty stoic because he's supposed to be a robot. Earl Boen just does his part. Joe Morton, of course, is super likable. You like him the moment you see him. And you know, Edward Furlong, of course, was a kid at the time, but man, did the kid act so well at the time? Like, yeah, he's this guy's definitely older than me. I think, yeah, he's definitely older than me. But yeah, he acted so well at the time. And man, looking at the rating, 8.5, I think this is one of the few deserved ratings on IMDb. One of the most deserved ratings I've ever seen for a film. So let me pull up my rating. Now, as a fanboy, without a question, I'm going to give this film a 9 out of 10. But to be realistic about it, I think it is safe to say that this film was definitely an 8 out of 10. And IMDb's rating of 8.5 definitely stands out, making this one of the greatest sci fi films ever made, and one of the most iconic films ever made, and one of the films that definitely shaped and developed pop culture as a whole. Because, you know, the whole point of the robots from the future coming, you know, like taking over mankind is a thing that we're seeing today as technology advances. And Terminator will definitely be a film that's going to outlive all of us, outlive generations. And, you know, even if the machines never take over, this will be a film that will be in the back of everyone's mind. And if the machines take over, this will be the film that said, I told you so. And these are the kind of films that people will struggle to make again and again. But you know what? Just for the sake of being the absolute fanboy for once, I think I'll change the rating to this to a 9 out of 10. And let me tell you, as I said, if I honestly were to rate films, yes, this is an 8 out of 10. I think there's no question about it. You can take it as a 7, you can take it as a 9. So that's my stand on it. This is definitely not the perfect film. It's never going to be a 10 out of 10 film. But man, was this one of like one of the best, right, ever made? So yeah, it's pretty insane. So I'm actually so glad that IMDb actually got their rating right for one of the films. And man, this film was made in 1991. So think about how many years it would have taken for people to actually decide how good this film is by rewatching it and then judging it based on the films that are coming out. Because I don't think in 1991 we even had IMDb, right? So this movie was like rated way, way after. So there's like a million ratings on this, right? So looking at like it takes a million ratings probably to actually decide if a film is like going to get the perfect rating more or less. And yep, this is definitely an 8.5. Solid film. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. If you guys have not watched Terminator 2, like what are you doing with your lives? Like seriously, I'm not kidding. You have to watch this. This is an insane movie. One of the best films ever made, if you ask me. James Cameron was at the peak of his game at the time, and man, he definitely took some of the greatest movies, especially those who grew up in the 90s. Like you have to watch at least like two or three of James Cameron's movies at the time. Like no one hadn't watched any of his films. It was just brilliant, all everything that he did. So yeah, watch Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Take care, guys.